happy now? Pair of you?
Pardon?
Are you both happy now? Another 2 councillors leaving tonight. This is our last rodeo tonight. This is our last one. It's because of you two.
The meeting started. She would have been getting addressed by the councillor.
I don't think the meeting is addressing you. That's how we're addressing. We're not addressing the councillors, I'm addressing you.
Alright.
The pair of you.
What did you say? I didn't quite catch it. I don't want to repeat it, you know.
What is Stevie?
Okay, I think it is.
The councillors, I'm addressing you.
Alright.
The pair of you.
What did you say? I didn't quite catch it. No, don't want to repeat it, you know.
What is Stevie?
Okay, I think it is as good as. Okay. Yeah, do you want to move around next to you? Are you getting
Well, we put it on, I didn't know whether or not we needed it on because I wasn't cold. Do you want to turn it down or is that maximum or is it?
No, just makes a noise.
Okay, we turn it down. Yes, thank you. Yeah, okay, it is definitely 7:30 now, so I'm going to start the meeting. Okay, welcome everyone to the meeting of Thirston Parish Council for March. I'm going to start quickly with an apology. I think the only apology for absence we have is Councillor Huntman.
And County Council Service.
Okay, Councillor Sanderson as well. I think I am right in saying Councillor Huntman is not.
Yes, he's not standing.
Is not standing, so can I just ask that we note our thanks to Councillor Hampton, although his time with us has been
That's
very...
3 down. That's 3 leaving.
That will be after this evening, but I'd just like to put on record our thanks to him for his contribution in his time as councillor. That takes us then to item 3, to public questions. Any public questions? Yes.
Yeah. Item 11, correspondence.
Yeah.
An entry reads, email, direct to one councillor in relation to Airfield Liaison Group, which progressed into queries in relation to councillors receiving copies of emails in their full version or doctored from the clerk. I find this description offensive and deliberately misleading. A doctored document being one that has been deliberately altered to mislead. I simply asked the councillor to confirm whether he had received a full copy or a selective section as given to me by Chair Marshall in one of his responses to me. The councillor confirmed to me he had received a full copy, and therefore it follows all councillors were aware of my intention to record the meeting from my email of the 25th of November 2024, 3 weeks before your Thurston Parish Council meeting on the 19th of December 2025. Question: where within my email is there any reference to other emails being doctored by the clerk?
So, you've got the section where I can just move that way.
On the agenda, or the, I've given my agenda over there.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
This is just... Okay, that was how...
Well, that's how I interpret it. He's saying that I've actually removed things from emails that have gone round to councillors, so therefore, to me, that's saying that I've doctored the emails, just like he said that I've, misrepresented the minutes. Basically, all emails are sent round in full, nothing's omitted, nothing's added.
Okay, and this is in the agenda for today's meeting. Okay, I think that is, and that is the explanation of what you were trying to, or what we were looking to say in relation to that is simply that there was a suggestion that an incomplete email had been sent round, and I think that is that was the point.
That's not what adopted means.
Semantics.
It's not
I think
semantic.
we've answered that. Do you want to move on to the next?
Excuse me, this is public questions.
I think
As the email was sent to Councillor Day, I did email him today asking him to actually comment on the email as to whether that description actually reflected what the contents of my communications with Councillor Day was.
I think we all agree that it was the interpretation it's a different interpretation of those words, and that's all it is. So it is semantic.
Agreed.
So adopted has a definition, removing parts of the email have a definition.
Doctors is a change. Doctors is adopted is a change to the actual written text, whereas the selected items is the item in its entirety.
We'll use it probably is.
I struggle to see. I struggle to see. I have to be honest to see the distinction. But I think it's right. You've made the point. You obviously you want to make the point. It's been made in public. Obviously, you're recording the meeting as well, so that will be. The point will be recorded, and we note we note what you say in relation to that. But I think there's a difference of opinion.
I'm surprised as a solicitor, or retired solicitor, that you don't think there's much difference between a adopted document and a one which has been selectively quoted from.
I think that the interpretation that was given when that was, or the way it was received, it may not be the way you intended to convey it, but the way it was received was the suggestion that it had been adopted, if you want to use that term, because you were suggesting
No,
that
I haven't
bits
used the
had
term.
been missed out. I appreciate you didn't use the term. That is the term that we have used, but it was that was how it was received and understood by us. Was the fact that that's what you were suggesting. If your suggestion...
Just to be clear, it wasn't received by you directly. I sent it to Councillor Day. He passed it on to you.
Well, I think that's been semantic, to be honest, because if you send it to a councillor in the parish council, you would expect that it would be shared with other councillors as we do. But I think we just have a different view there.
Okay.
Do you have
That's
any
it,
other,
yeah. No.
any other questions? Any other questions from members of the public? No? Okay. It was the...
Oh, yeah, okay. So, the Cemetery Committee read the long-term strategy.
So this is us where we asked for some consideration as to the longer term value of this, which was to come back to this meeting.
So, obviously you're aware that the committee discussed how to promote the awareness of the cemetery, having an article in the Gazette to promote its beauty and raise the profile. Also areas to be reviewed where costs where they could be cut. In terms of the cemetery being transferred to NCC, there has been communication with NCC and they have come back to state it's not a closed cemetery, so transfer will be treated very differently. They've never been asked about a transfer of an open cemetery. If transferred, County Council could not look at graves, excavations or interments. And Felton Parish Council holds the records for the interments. It is just the maintenance of the cemetery, and the committee would have to need to specify exactly what they want to have undertaken, i.e. trimming, grass cutting, path clearing, etc. There would need to be a service level agreement put in place to cover all costs. They also asked questions about when the cemetery opened, what denominations in the cemetery and who holds the records, the internal records. Now all of this would have to be put in writing to Paul Lowes, but actually it was when I looked at all of this again, and Newton and Moore and Swarland have come back to say that actually it looks like what's being discussed is a ground maintenance contract as opposed to a transfer. So yeah, I know. So Paul knows should be contacted and possibly include Nalc in on the discussions, because it could actually be the same situation for other cemeteries in Northumberland. But the thought process was that Nalc would, NCC would probably prefer to discuss this after the forthcoming elections. Because obviously there will be a cost implication, etc. in this, so couldn't really make any decisions at the moment, I don't think. In terms of the ring fence money, the chair of the cemetery committee has stated that this was discussed as part of the last meeting. There are no restrictions. It wasn't a donation, so that it wasn't restricted in any way. It was started when the cemetery was busy, and so money was put aside over successive years by the committee. So they believe that as there's no restrictions in place, then the transfer of funds to general reserves would benefit the committee going forward. I relayed this information to the Thirston Parish Council for their input, but they haven't come back on that as yet.
So they're not seeking our approval to transfer it. They don't believe they need to.
Well, they are still seeking the approval of the two parish councils, but as I say, Newton has just recently received the information to state that, you know, the chair has said that it's not restricted anyway, it wasn't a donation, it's money that it was surplus and has been sort of sitting there in case, because at the time the cemetery was quite busy, and it was like, well, we might need to build a new one or find land for a new one, and obviously those circumstances have now changed.
I'm just reluctant to give our approval until they've come up with a financial strategy that shows that the cemetery can be financially viable going ahead. Because at the moment I don't see that their income is enough to cover the costs, and the salaries of the clerk and the masons have gone up, which is right, that it should have, but there isn't any income to cover those costs. So unless they do something quite dramatic, drastic about looking at the financial sustainability of the cemetery, then it's going to go bankrupt, basically. Or they're going to continue to ask for more and more money from the parish councils, which we can't use for other purposes for the community. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be giving that money, but I want to be assured that the committee have considered the financial stability of the cemetery before the years ahead, before we allow them to use that money. That would be my view.
Okay. Any other thoughts or views on?
Well, it's, I haven't been to a cemetery committee meeting since our last parish council meeting anyway. The next one's not until April. And then, well, I think it'd probably be you as the heir apparent. I think so.
Oh, you're still in post until the beginning of May.
I didn't realise that. I think I'm actually on the negative. It'll be somebody will need to speak to them. But, whether it be me in my final cemetery committee meeting, whether it's going to be down to you, we'll see anyway.
Okay, I think there's two things going on here. One is the exploring the longer term strategy. There's been progress,
Yes.
and it's good to see that that's a process. It's perhaps slightly overdue, but there has been progress. I think that just needs to be followed through, because what I'm hearing from what has been said so far is that they're talking about the grounds maintenance contract, and the grounds maintenance contract with the council may be no cheaper than what is being expended currently, but let's understand what the position of the council is properly. I think that Felton is the lead parish council on this, and the lead to the joint cemetery committee So I think the parish council with the Joint Cemetery Committee and Felton need to drive that forward. I don't have a problem with what you're saying about holding back until we have an answer to that. I suspect, in reality, that unless we agree to the transfer of the money across, then we will be met with a greater request and need. So I suspect, in all likelihood, we will have to consider this again quite soon. However, I agree with you that I think it needs to be part of a longer term plan rather than just, because this is a very short term measure, it's something you can do once, but once that money's gone, it's gone. Just to say though, I don't think, from what I'm hearing there, that there is going to be a scenario where NCC will take this, the site over and relieve the parish councils of all financial responsibility. I think there will be a cost ongoing of this, but I think we need to understand what that is and try and negotiate. And again, I think one of the parish councils, probably Felton, needs to take the lead on this, because we are at best, we're actually the smallest contributor to this by a margin. One of the parish councils needs to take a lead, and it's probably Felton, to explore how we move this forward, because we need a longer term plan for this. And as you rightly say, it can't carry on, because eventually any money that's there any residual monies will run out, and it will simply be a request every year for funding, and it doesn't look like the income, it doesn't look like there's anything that's going to change to give a step change in income.
But if I can just make the point that if it does go on to a grounds maintenance contract through the council, but it won't look anything like it looks now.
Yeah.
It'll look like every other cemetery in this part of Northumberland, which is generally overgrown and it won't be like, more or less the jewel in the crown, and it's worth paying a little bit extra for. And I quite understand what you're saying about the being untenable because it's not producing enough money, but that I think it needs to be looked at what it will look like with the council contract. But
I think once the options are known, it may be something that again the lead parish council or the parish councils jointly might want to have a consultation with local residents, setting out what the options are, and inviting views to get a wider feel of how people feel about that, because I think that would be important in making a final decision. Can you feed that all back, Lisa, please? Appreciate you can, or we'll make sure it's fed back at the next meeting. Yeah. Okay. Parking.
There's one other bit under, just the benches.
Yeah.
So, Thurston Parish Council has written to Felton Parish Council stating it's appropriate that the rules relating to what happens if there's unbudgeted additional expenditure required or desired is made clear. Which will tie in with these policies, but basically the budget must be agreed for the year, and if it needs to be revised or further expenditure required, then the Cemetery Committee needs to seek approval from all parish councils involved before expenditures committed are incurred. And that request should be made by a paper explaining the rationale for the expenditure. So it can be considered fully by each parish council. Obviously to ensure tight controls over the unlimited reserves, and that has been sent through to Felton Parish Council. So it has been sent yes to Felton Parish Council from Thirston Parish Council. As yet there's no response back on it, but I haven't had a cemetery meeting. I don't have a parish council since it was sent. Esher Airfield newsletter that was circulated. An email requesting a copy of the Esher Airfield newsletter. I did provide it, however, the requester is once again informed that the information is available from the airfield. and to anyone, and that they should register to receive it direct. And following that, there was an email question raised about the runway extension to Esher Airfield, which was mentioned in the newsletter. I'd already raised this with the airfield due to it not being mentioned at the liaison group, and the airfield responded to state it wasn't mentioned at the liaison group as they currently don't have any definitive plans to extend the runway. As part of our initial meeting with neighbours and members last year, yes, we would like to extend the runway to give pilots a bigger margin of safety, but this is a long-term wish, and any changes will be discussed with all relevant parties at the appropriate time. However, it was mentioned in the newsletter because one of their members in December had asked and said that we'd like to see the runway extended as soon as possible, and could provide an update on the unused runway at the end of 0119, where farm stuff's currently stored.
Is that the amount?
Well, the update was simply that access to the runway is paid for, and they need to do significant work around access, condition, costs and timescales to understand what might be possible. So, I'm assuming that
Suggests it's
Be
not their
Blackbrook
land.
land.
That suggests that it would be, must be Blackbrook.
Must be Blackbrook land. Beyond,
No.
is it not?
it's 0119, so it's actually the Browns.
Oh, right.
And they
Thurston
store
Roses.
lots of they do have big farm equipment there sometimes, and they have piles of stuff that
Farming
needs
stuff.
on the land, you know,
Farming
as
stuff.
their fertiliser and things like that, yeah, farming stuff. So, yeah.
Well, that's something that I'm sure we'll find a bit more out through the liaison group in terms of keeping a watchful eye on what's happening.
Yeah. Emails, numerous emails read low flying over Blackbrook Farm and Airfield liaison group which were flying around, they were all circulated. Emails copied into numerous complaints about low flying by the Chipmunk BYSJ which was circulated. Email with the flying in event at Esher Airfield that was circulated. Email directed to a council in relation to the airfield liaison group which progressed into queries in relation to councils receiving copies of emails in the full version. We've already discussed that. 2 emails copied in re-employment numbers quoted in airfield applications that was circulated. And then one that I actually omitted because of all the emails that were coming through. I must have missed this one, but it wasn't until I got a response on a question that I'd raised. So it's not on the agenda, but it was in relation to matters from February meeting, read back from the supplier, Ockenfield Road, safety and disparaging remarks through caravans.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So in relation to the VAT, it's the parish council's responsibility to check invoice details so that we know that they all add up, that the address is correct and the banking details are correct, and that's all verified when you set up a payment to the bank because it says it's a match or it's not a match. So to comply with due diligence, that's what we do. It's the responsibility of the business owner to ensure the VAT registration is correct, not the parish council's responsibility. And actually the changes are being made via the probate system because obviously it's registered to the late Tony Hood.
Can I just add, Lisa, I don't want to leave the parish council, but I'm leaving the parish council because of the actions of one man, and one man only, and that's the only reason that I've resigned from the parish council. If you put that in the minutes, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
More expense for the parish council.
Can I just check whether, again, I think this is something for, not really for me, but for for successors. I think last time we felt Gallery 45 had worked quite well for us. We've obviously got a little bit of a patchwork of bookings, but it was left that we were umming and erring a bit. Just would it be, what do people think about saying Gallery 45 for our meetings?
I think we discussed last time that yes, it was good venue and we could just support that as a business. So
It's a way of supporting that
Yes.
particular cause as well. So
It would be double booked tonight because of the book festival, was it?
Yeah, it was a case of, I was having just to struggle to get bookings because we lost the crematorium, so.
we'll have to get into a pattern,
Yeah.
but I think that the pattern may well be, but as I say.
Well, I
in
normally
that
try and do, sort of in the past, try to do bookings from like September, get the dates, September, October time, and then get a venue booked. So hopefully, I'll be able to get that sorted for February 45.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. It is just a bit towards 9. I'm going to draw the meeting